Hi, I'm looking at a Ford C-Max. It's got low fuel pressure problems. So I'm going to look at the car, see what's going on. I'm going to start checking the fuel filter. And I'll take it from there, see if I can get flow through the fuel filter. If I do, or if I don't, I'll check at the other side and see what the difference is. I'm using a couple of kits. One of them has attachments and a primer, and the other one is just a pressure kit. I don't know how good this is going to work for this test. I get it set up. This is coming out of the filter. That's the one going into the filter from the fuel tank. Here's the one going out. I've got the gauge put in there as well to see what happens. So I'm going to prime this here. I've got a bucket to catch the diesel. I'm pulling a vacuum. It stopped. Hold on 1 second. 5. Problem is, I'm going to have to hold the bucket before it falls off. I find when that happens, when you crush it and it stays crushed, there's a blockage. We can see we're pulling a vacuum. Yeah, I could put a different pump on here that I could pump it up. I've got one in the van. But sometimes they've got a bit more power and you can miss something like this. This is a good indication. But in this case, we can see it on the gauge. I'm building a vacuum so far. What I'm going to do now is take it off this side and put it in. I'm going to take the pipe off here and see what it's like pulling from the fuel tank, because we want to know, is the blockage in the filter, or is it over in the back of the car in the fuel tank, or the fuel line going between the tank to here. I'll just get it set up and we'll compare it. Okay, I've changed it over. Here's the pipe coming from the fuel tank. Put an adapter in here. Got the gauge into here, it's back at 0. It's coming in, and anything I pull out should go into that bucket. So I'm going to try and prime it. See, now this comes back out again. So that's what I was saying before. When that stays in, I find with this particular gauge, that indicates a blockage. Let's see what vacuum we're pulling. Did you hear that? That wasn't me. That's this thing making a noise. It's starting to pull. It's straining a little bit. But it is pulling it up here. We've got fuel up here. It's pulling it. It's not gone as far as the 5 that it went to before though. It's just staying in the 0 range, but it's enough to pull the fuel through. Although it is slow. There we go. And it's coming all the way through the tank. It's almost like some sort of blockage maybe in the tank again. We've got it both sides of there. But it is allowing me to prime it. It's not sticking, it's pulling it through now when I work this. There's a fair amount coming out of there. Okay. I think it's worth changing the fuel filter, because there's definitely more coming out of it before the fuel filter than there is coming through after the fuel filter. There's nothing at all coming through. Here's the old filter with the blockage. I'm going to try and drain it and see what comes out and figure out what's in there. Why did it get blocked? Putting in a new one. It was £51, so they're not cheap. So hopefully this isn't going to block straight away again. primer's connected, I'm going to prime the system now that the new filter's connected, been replaced. This time the primer's not staying closed. That's when I squeeze it, it's not just staying crushed. It is letting me prime with it. Like I said before, I've got enough one that can do this quicker. It's kind of more for pulling oil out of the engine out of a dipstick tube. It's got more suction behind it, but this one, I find if this has got a problem and this stays crushed, there's a fault with a blockage that I might not detect with the other one, because it will still pull something through. There's this bled already. Now I'm going to maybe open up the filter and see what was in there. The old filter, I mean. Open it up, see what's in it. The fuel coming out of it looks clean enough. Something was definitely blocking it. I could try putting the pump on there with no fuel in. See if it's still blocked. And then the hand primer on there, see if it's still blocked. Doesn't look that dirty. Not sure how much of that. That's just water in it. I'm not sure how much of that was. Maybe stuff that was in this antifreeze bottle anyway. There it is. I've took the fuel out. It's still blocked. Still done the same thing. Nothing's coming through here. So the fuel filter has got enough of a blockage that this kind of a weak hand primer is not going to come back out. It stays crushed. Whereas a regular primer might actually just force the fuel through. And you'll miss that if you... This is kind of handy as a diagnostic tool in a way. Because the other one doesn't do that, it still forces the fuel through. I've taken the filter little paper element out of here. Now we can ignore some of this because when I ground the top off with a cutting disc, some of that's going to be from the case. But this was inside, it does look pretty gunged up. So whatever it is, the filter did its job in catching it. Just got to figure out what that is. We've put an additive in the tank, so hopefully if it is a bacteria, it's going to catch it or kill it. And some of that, like I say, it must be from me cutting it open with the grinder. But yeah, some of it is just gungy, and I think that's the problem anyway. It was totally blocked. This sensor is fitted into the car. Looks like that. Works a bit like an ABS sensor. And it knows when the petrol flap's open. Or in this case, diesel. There's a magnet there. And when the magnet goes near to the sensor, it changes. See where it says open? Well, on the scan tool, that's not changing. So, if I put a magnet near to it, there's one on the end of this light, it's still not changing. But if I fit the new one and do it again, I've changed it for the new one, that's still saying open there. So I've got the magnet on the bottom of the light again. The new one's up there. If I put the magnet near to it, see it switches to closed. And I move the magnet away. There's the light. I'm just moving it close to it and further away. And it's going to change it on here. It's not in focus. But you kind of see it. Open, closed, open. I'm just moving the light near to it and away from it. But the old one doesn't do that. Right, it's closed now. The new one's fitted. I've opened the flap. It's open. Close the flap. It's closed. It does go in both ways. You can slide it in up here. It slides in. That one's for the lock. So you can't open the flap when you've locked the car. It's this one up here that I've just changed, and it just slides in. It goes in both ways, that way or that way, but it only works one way.
So basically if it doesn't...
Now I'm back probed, I've got the red ones about 11 volts. I don't know if you can see that, the blue one's at 0. I'm going to open the flap. Now the red one is right about, well, it's probably around 7, and so is the blue. So the blue's come up and the red's gone down. I could actually measure that to let you know. It's just so that you know what a good one, a working one, should be. 1 second, that's not coming down. Computer's froze. Yeah, it was a bit slow there. I don't even know if you can see this. I'll tell you. Right, so they're both at 7 volts on the red and the blue. When this is open, close it, and then they've both changed, so the blue has gone to 0, don't need to measure that one, and the red has gone up to 10, nearly 11 volts. Like I say, I don't know if you can see it in the glare, so I'm just connected to the 2 wires, not these 2, the 2 behind it, further up. And I'm using the ground on the power probe, so I'm straight to the battery. So that's just in case you wanted to know how to test these. That's the car working better now. The idea of this was, I remember a few years ago when I worked at Peugeot in St Andrews, I had a similar fault. A very similar system, the engine and the additive tank under the car, and that had the fuel flap was stuck, so it thought that it was open all the time when it wasn't. So the level of the additive went down really quickly and ran out of it, and I think that's what's going on here. Every time you put the ignition on or you start the car, it's giving it another shot of additive because it thinks there's fuel being put into the tank. So now hopefully it's going to last longer and it's not going to choke up the 50 pound fuel filter that has to go on it. Hopefully it's not going to choke that as well, and it's going to keep up with the DPF regens. Hopefully this has been useful to somebody, and thanks for watching.